and got along very well with people from town, with people, that you'd meet at Cronin's for beers on Thursday night. There was a Thursday night club, it was called. Ed Argy was one of the people involved. He was one of the first people that I knew, apart from Terry Peters from my hometown in Brainerd, whom I mentioned, who was killed in Vietnam. And other guys, these were really very good people. And they were people who sometimes were in the co-op house, sometimes they were, something else. So anyway, this turned out quite amiable. And also the deal with the summer traveling fellowship. Everybody else who had won it before, they tended to be people who went to Boston Public Latin. I mean, back in those days, typically there would be 50 boys admitted from Andover, 50 from Exeter, 50 from Boston Public Latin, and then you'd begin. I was the beginning of geographic distribution, giving scholarships to get people from underserved parts of the country that are not involved in Ivy League schools. And so I got I was treated very, very well by Harvard. If I was broke or if I needed money to visit my family when my mother died, they were always there for me. So anyway, the Dudley Summer Traveling Fellowship was for travel. And you had to present a proposal that might be of some interest, and also basically how you were going to budget it. And I figured that everybody else who was applying it were going to apply to go to Europe. Didn't need that. I'd never been to South America, to Latin America, and also partly just to really I had been taking a course with Jack Womack on Latin American history. I was in Renaissance history and lit, but I got interested in Francisco Cervantes de Salazar, first professor of rhetoric at the then newly founded University of New Spain, Mexico, and the best collection in the United States of anything having to do with him is in Austin, Texas. And a lot of the materials and a lot of things related to him in some way or another that he would have seen or that might have had some impact are, of course, in Mexico City. And I was also interested in the Jesuits' Paraguay plantations and just basically the Spanish Renaissance impact on the Indies, on the Americas. So I drew up my proposal for the Dudley Summer Traveling Fellowship to go first to Austin, Texas, and University of Texas, which has a wonderful library. And I stayed in the equivalent of the co-op house there. I think I was there for I don't know how many days. Then by bus to Mexico City and around Mexico a bit. From there by bus yet again and getting visas as I needed from one place to the next to another. By bus to Guatemala City because the family of a friend of mine, Gustavo, what was his first name? Wiseman was their last name. Had an import-export business, a business in Guatemala City. Visited them, and then I decided this is kind of interesting to be here. So I went from Guatemala City to Puerto Dulce. Anyway, it's on the Rio Dulce, the Caribbean coast, and saw various old things, vaguely Mayan, and also it's some big snakes and stuff that was kind of fun. Back in Guatemala City. I can't remember if it was there or anyway. I went by land again down through Central America, just basically to capitals, and not doing a whole lot in them except seeing, the Cathedral Square or other stuff. There were the highlands, generally, as you're going down. And it was in Panama that I ran into a cohort of Brits. It was either there or earlier. Anyway, we were going to the same places. And they were quite experienced at traveling. And their plan was to go down through the river system from Bolivia, and they knew somebody in Bolivia who was at a kicking off point for going down the Amazon, the upper areas of the Amazon Bay. That sounded like a very good idea, but let me back up. Anyway, the Quito I thought was wonderful. I spent a couple days in Guayaquil, not in Guayaquil itself, but on the beaches, which I didn't enjoy particularly, although the sort of fake champagne, there were things pleasant about it, things not very pleasant about it. There were a lot of insects. Then back up to Quito, where the Brits still were, and flew to, am I getting ahead of myself? Anyway, eventually to Lima, and Lima was a very lovely place, and from there to Machu Picchu and to Lake Titicaca, and crossed Lake Titicaca on that old boat. And then in La Paz, it was a question of where to go, whether to stick with them and go down the river system. But I decided, no, I am getting, I was very careful about what I ate. So I took the train to Cordoba in Spain, in Argentina, and it was like being in the United States. We had excellent wine, excellent beef. But on the train, you buy things from people selling on the sides of it. And one thing I could manage pretty well, and I knew I would not get sick from it, was cutting up pineapples and eating pineapple to survive on this train with the selling things. The other thing that was interesting, I always had books with me to read if things really were boring on a bus or on whatever. Usually books in English, but some of them, I don't know if any of them still have marks. All the classics of Russian literature and other just sort of classic works in literature. But what was supposed to be the train, at one point, the train wasn't running, it was by bus. And so a bus stop was just basically the Altiplano had been cleared off, and the women would go to one side of the bus and the men would go to the other side of the bus, and then you'd be back on. And there were really not very many people at all who spoke Spanish on the bus, not to mention English. They spoke Quechua, which was interesting.
And you once told a story about stopping at a village somewhere where you sort of played with some children. Somewhere.
Oh yeah, that was in Guatemala, at the port city in Guatemala, and I was staying. It was a hotel that was basically the Caribbean coast of Guatemala, and all of those places is filled with merchant marine. If they've got any customer, it's not. So anyway, this was basically where women lived and their children, and the children were delightful, and no one was going to bother anybody about anything. I was not, but it was there also that, and I can't remember who it was, but I was able to get it to go by way of dugout. This guy paddling it